5 days before Christmas, Wednesday, December 20th, 2017. Chewy and I float on inner tubes in the pool at his apartment complex. We're not supposed to have drinks, but we've become experts at breaking that rule. By holding our beers underwater when not pressing them to our lips, we hide them from prying eyes and keep them at a nice temperature. Every month is July in San Diego. It never rains. Seasons sail past, but you barely feel their wake. A year can come and go, and you'll hardly notice. Your waist expands, your hair grows thinner, wrinkles appear on your face, and those are the only signs of the passage of time. When you float through life on an endless summer, the only indication you're reaching the end of your voyage is the weakening of your vessel. I worry about you, Vato. My face expresses my incredulity so deftly, Chewy's seriousness melts, and he bursts into laughter. You're worried about me? He takes a swig. Yeah, dude, it doesn't seem like anyone's steering. What? You? He points with such force he almost capsizes. Whoa, hey, shut up, I'm serious. Yeah, I can tell. I'm laughing harder than I should because I know what's coming. Chewy takes a delicate approach with me in everything we discuss, whether he's teaching me how to fix a car or our horns are locked in video game combat. This is different, and maybe my procrastination will cause the moment to expire without the friction of one of Chewy's famous drunken lectures. We lull into silence, and I relax, closing my eyes. Just as I'm about to slip into sleep, his voice wakes me with a start. It's just the guy I knew over there was driven and had plans. What happened to him? You know what happened. He nods, falling silent again. After a moment, mischief fills his eyes. He slides off the tube into the water, trying to be stealthy. Don't do it, Chew. I'm not in the mood. Like a kid caught with his hand in the cookie jar, he says, I wasn't doing nothing. Right. He makes his move. One hand clasps my ankle and the other upends the inner tube. I know this game. By now I've perfected a winning strategy. Chewy might be a better grappler than me, but I can hold my breath longer than almost anyone I know. The reins are pulled on our horseplay before either of us can be deemed the Derby champion. I'm loading up, Amaya says. Can you get Noah? My wife descends from the upstairs apartments, burdened by a foil-covered tray of tamales. It's part of the cultural exchange program our two families have cooked up, an assortment of Chewy's uncle's hot tamales for a batch of Amaya's mother's lumpia. Wiping my eyes, I peer through the fence to where my son's playing soccer with Chewy's kids. Noah, I shout. Amaya clicks her tongue. Get out of the pool and do it. Wagging his finger at me in mock chastisement, Chewy says, and take off those trunks so you don't get the car seat wet. I knew it, I quip. You've been trying to get me to strip for years. Sophia comes out of the apartment and shouts down to her husband, Chewy, come help me with these dishes. Sinking to his chin, my buddy says, see me, Alma. As he gathers the inner tubes and makes his way to the side of the pool, he shrugs. Happy wife, happy life, Vato. It's late, which for me means it's the ungodly hour of 4 p.m. I start to pull myself out at the edge, but my shoulder and inebriation force me to the ladder. I'm still considering the pain when I rush out barefoot and step on a goat head thorn. After almost rolling my ankle, I pluck the caltrop from my instep and take my frustrations out on my boy. Didn't you hear your mother? We're leaving. Noah, who is running for a goal, passes the ball my way. Kick it in, Dad. He watches me with bitter disappointment as it rolls past me and his opponents take control of the field. Thanks a lot. I gave you a clear shot. Why didn't you take it? I'm not wearing shoes and there are thorns. I wave him toward me. Come on. I don't want to. We're only down by 2. We could still win. You and Esteban against Anya and Fatima. Yeah, I don't think so. It's going to be a blowout, kiddo. Give up now and save face. Noah's little mouth contorts with juvenile fury. Why do we have to go? You were just floating around in the pool, drinking beer and ignoring everyone else. You always tell me I have to make my own fun. So if you won't play with me, let me play with them. I've got to admit, the kid's got a point. I don't know what I'm doing. For years, people told me I'd be a good dad, and my failure at fatherhood is just another disappointment I live with on a daily basis. It's not like I don't try. I was taught actions speak louder than words, and I work my ass off so my family has a roof over their heads and food on their table. I don't know what else I'm supposed to do. I wasn't much older than Noah when my dad checked out of my life. I make a lot of mistakes, but at least I'm not my absentee, lecherous, alcoholic old man. Your mother wants to go. Amaya's so close, standing just behind me, and I can almost feel her hot breath on my neck. Thank you for always making me the bad guy. She glares at me, her arms folded across her chest like a padlock, barring me from her heart and body. Come on, Noah, we have to get your Christmas presents from Lola and Grandpa. His little eyes twinkle at the thought, and he rushes to my wife's side. Shit, why didn't I think of that? I love my in-laws, honest I do, but sometimes visiting them is like walking into a whirlwind. Amihan keeps sneaking candy to Noah and piling Tupperware containers of food on the counter. We're going out of town, Amaya says. It will keep, and you'll have something to eat when you come home. We still have leftovers from last time. We've developed a revolving roster of safe words to use when either my wife or I has had enough of a social encounter. For this visit, we picked a pretty good one, and I've spent the last 15 minutes going back and forth between Google and the kitchen. I've been saying things like, did you know some sharks lay eggs? And nurse sharks don't have to stay in motion to breathe. True story. Noah's a smart kid. He's cracked his parents' code. Chewing on a Werther's, he treats each of my interruptions as a chance to dunk on my alley-oops. Trying to be sly, I loom over the stove. I say, smells good. I wish I was a shark so I could sink 5 to 15 rows of teeth into that. Lola, what do you call the mushy white stuff between a shark's teeth? Noah asks as he tugs his grandmother's sleeve. Amihan responds enthusiastically. What? Slow swimmers! My mother-in-law laughs at her grandson's joke, and I capitalize on the distraction by reinforcing my desire to leave to my wife with my eyes. She flushes with anger, throwing up her hands before shooting me a text message. I look at my phone. If you want to leave, leave. Chuckling, I respond, too buzzed to drive. The word Uber appears on my screen, followed by a series of furious emojis. Ryan pokes his head into the room. Come here a minute, my father-in-law says, and Amaya and I leave Noah with his Lola as we follow him into his man cave. You got to check this out, man. I know you'll appreciate this. When we get into the room, he proudly holds up his newest acquisition. Lay your eyes on this baby. Amaya steals the words out of my mouth. Is that a 68 Fender Stratocaster? Ryan shows off the little beauty. The guitar Hendrix played at Woodstock. My eyes widen in surprise. Really? He grins at me. Well, it's not that guitar, but it's the same model. Jimmy burned that one, Amaya says, sticking her tongue out at me. Hell no, he didn't. It's in a vault. Plugging in his instrument and firing up his amp, Ryan says, Want to help me break this sick puppy in? When Amaya first introduced me to her parents, she said, Dad fought in Vietnam. Ryan nodded mutely. Paul was in Iraq. I nodded mutely. There was an awkward silence, and then she said, And we all play guitar. That loosened our tongues, and by the end of the night, I think we understood each other. Glancing at the time on my phone, I say, I've got to work tonight. Come on, a couple short songs. Ryan hands Amaya a guitar. Beatles, just the late stuff. He hands me a guitar. Don't leave me hanging. How about Mac the Knife, I say, answering Amaya's inquisitive glance by singing some of the lyrics. When the shark bites. Ryan says, not a great guitar tune. I wait for Amaya to make excuses for us. After all, it's her dad. That's when she breaks our rule. Paul wants to leave. Sometimes the littlest things set me off. I feel a shot of adrenaline as my blood pressure spikes. I need sleep. Why is it so hard to understand? I know you do, Amaya says. You act like I'm an idiot. Ryan takes the guitars from us, clearly trying to steer from the middle of our animosity. All right, I didn't mean to pressure you kids. Rain check on the jam session. Thanks, Dad, Amaya says warmly. He's being grumpy, which is making me grumpy. I hold my tongue until we get into the car. As I peel away the sleep apnea mask and struggle with my first and likely solitary sit-up for the day, I say a silent prayer bordering on a curse. The idea I'll have to get out of bed and be a functioning member of society strikes me every morning as a cruel joke. No matter how many hours of sleep I get, I never feel rested, and the position in which I was sleeping has brought my old shoulder injury sharply to the surface. This pain has been with me for a third of my life, and I have no course of action but to believe it'll be there until I die. This painful and incessant reminder of the worst days of my life has kept me on a waiting list for Veterans Affairs, but I stopped holding my breath that I would find any relief long ago. At the time it happened, I made the mistake of downplaying my wound. I was young and brash and didn't listen to my elders when they said I'd feel it more as I grew older. I felt lucky at the time. Guilty, too, if I'm being honest. It wasn't addressed until I was back in the States. By that time, I was in a queue with thousands of other wounded warriors, and compared to most of them, I felt like I was whining and should just suck it up. It's probably too late to do anything about it now, so it's just another thing I have to live with. I sit on the edge of the bed and grunt, failing to put on my own socks. For a moment, I fantasize about taking a sick day, and that's when my wife stirs beneath the sheets beside me. Amaya moves through the darkness, her eyes still half shut. She crouches in front of me and helps me get dressed. My boots are installed, the laces tied tight before I help pull her back to her feet. Thanks, I whisper. Didn't mean to wake you. She sleepily pats me on the head and crawls under the covers. I tell her good night and pull on my reflective safety vest. On my way out, I peek in on Noah. He's 7 years old and reminds me a lot of my brother when he was that age. While he might have Chris's looks, his personality is a mixture of my sister's impishness, my wife's sense of humor, my mother's sweetness, and the wild imagination I had as a child. Noah is curled up with Lady, our sweet Old English sheepdog. Their intermingled snores are like a cat's purr, beckoning me back to bed where I could listen to the rain ting against the tin roof of the back porch and slumber the night away. I pull up to the store, noticing a few more cars than usual. I can't help it. The San Diego Sheriff's Department cruiser leaves me with an unsettled feeling. My worst suspicions seem confirmed when I see the nervous expression on everyone's faces as I push through the employee entrance. Matthew, the loss prevention manager, speaks in serious tones to the officer, and I'm even more unnerved when they fix their eyes on me. "Hey, Paul," Matthew says, trying to sound casual. "Can we chat a minute?" My mind immediately begins reeling for an explanation. "Is everything okay?" I ask. "Was there an injury?" All Matthew will tell me is no one is hurt. After we've gone upstairs, I'm scanning my memory for something objectionable enough to lead me to a sealed room with loss prevention, human resources, and the general manager. Sophia, the head of HR, urges me into a seat across from Stacy, our boss, who watches me with great expectation. After an awkward silence, Sophia finally says, "What can you tell me about the incident last night?" Shaking my head, I ask, "What incident?" Sophia rewords her question. "Can you tell me about last night?" "I'm not sure what you mean." Matthew sets aside the pad he's been taking his notes in and says, "I think we can get straight to the point. Last night while you were working, a deposit bag went missing, and we want to know if you have any information regarding its whereabouts." "Yeah," I say. "Stacy must have dropped it. I found it in the break room." The three of them look at each other as though what I've just said was a shocking confession. Stacy asks, "And that's when you left the property while still on the clock." "Is that what this is about? Me not clocking out?" "Well, yeah," I answer. I wasn't really thinking about it. The whole thing kind of got me nervous. Sophia nods. I can imagine it was very tempting. I laugh, involuntarily. "I guess so." $50,000, Matthew adds. The sum takes me back a little. I'm certain it registers on my face because they're all gawking at me. I'm piecing things together when Stacy looks me dead in the eyes and says, "We won't press charges if you return the money, but we will have to terminate your employment." I'm thunderstruck, not only by the accusation, but also who's making it, and how convincingly. Matthew says, "As you know, there's a sheriff's deputy here, Paul. We don't want to have to go that route, but we are prepared to, if necessary." I find my voice. "Stacy, I gave the money to you." She shakes her head. "We have you on video putting the deposit bag into your car and driving away." The security cameras aren't even working. I hear myself saying the words and realize how damning they could be. "The ones inside the store aren't working," Matthew replies. "The parking lot cameras caught everything." I fish out my phone and pull up my call history. Look, right here. See? I called Stacy last night to tell her she left the deposit behind and asked her what she wanted me to do. She told me to bring it to her. I swear to God, I didn't take it. Sophia and Matthew look to Stacy for explanation. "That's patently absurd," Stacy says. "I have the message you left." She puts her phone on the table and plays the voicemail. My voice buzzes from the speaker. "Hey, Stacy, it's Paul. I went by your desk and didn't see anything left out, but I don't really know what I'm supposed to be looking for. Hope whatever it was you think you forgot wasn't too embarrassing. Ha! Anyway, have a good night, and I'll see you tomorrow." "No," I say. "No, I called you twice." "See?" I try to show them on my phone's history, but it only reveals one call to Stacy's number. Let me change my settings. You'll see, it was 2 calls, not 1. Matthew says, "Don't make this harder than it has to be, Paul." Stacy adds, "We just want to get the money back. We really don't want to press charges." I feel the blood rush from my extremities as my pulse pounds in every artery. This bitch has no clue who she's dealing with, does she? "I didn't steal your fucking money," I shout. Sophia tries to calm me by invoking my name, but it's far too late for that. I've never stolen a goddamn thing in my life. Okay, I stole a boat once. I borrowed a boat. I brought it back. It wasn't like that. I realize I'm babbling and slam my fist down on the table. "How dare you accuse me of this? I'm a war vet. And you know what? Fuck you, Stacy. How can you live with yourself?" They stare at me like I just murdered a kitten and drank its blood. It's time to make my exit. I throw my name tag at them and beat my retreat. The sheriff's deputy, who's waiting on the other side of the administration offices, starts toward me, but I ignore him. Matthew comes out of the office not long after I do. He points at me, urging the officer, "Grab him!" I break into a run. I'm outside and in my car before any of them make it into the parking lot. I find myself, an hour later, sitting in front of a liquor store and knowing it will be hours before Amaya expects me home.